So, episode 8. The topic of discussion will be DLC. So, with us today we have Paragon Greg, or Greg.
Hello, HTL.
Miss Fish, Laura.
Hi.
And LK.
Hey guys, how's it going?
But before we get into the topic at hand, I want to get into some of the current HTL initiatives content and upcoming events. HTL articles, we have a growing list of articles that the community should really be looking at. There's some good stuff in there. One's a top 10 list of the worst games for, I believe it's Xbox 360, or in general. We have a growing list of reviews. Some of them are for The Witcher 2. There's first looks. There's various other things as well. HTL goes to GamerCon. We raised the $1,500 that we needed for a table booth, whatever it'll be, for the GamerCon initiative. So there's our advertising that we're looking to do. So we have a current social forum thread for it. Go there if you guys want to discuss it. Yitter, you're doing it right. This doesn't get a lot of attention, and it's something that really probably should. Basically, it's promoting developers and publishers that are treating the customers right, doing things that are giving the consumer and the customer the best experience possible with their product. And, acknowledging that. HTL social media team. This is an interesting topic as being one of the social media team members. We don't have many. So if you are on social media, by all means, jump in. HTL social media is the heart of our advertising right now. So anything the community can do would be greatly appreciated. Some of the other content we have going on. Recently did an interview with Eric Kane from Forbes in relation to game media, actually, of all things. And we have a community live stream on the 23rd at 7 p.m. And those are just some of the upcoming events. So, to get into the topic at hand, DLC. So, Laura, what's your take on DLC? What is it to you? And what should be to you?
I guess I'll go.
Yeah.
DLC, really, it's a way for, or at least I'm a developer, so the way we kind of see it is you can't put everything you want in a game at first. DLC should really be kind of like those extra things that really weren't that important, but you want to bring into the game anyway, because you have more time to develop DLC than you have the actual game. So you can actually add a lot more to the game with DLC.
Fair enough. Greg?
All right, I'll jump in here. DLC, it's from a business perspective, makes a lot of sense. You already have the team. You already have a lot of the assets. And, here's a chance to, instead of trying to redirect and reassociate your teams and put them on somewhere else, you can actually have them dedicated to something that continues the game. And I think it works very good as optional expansions to the game that you didn't get a chance to do because of your deadlines or because weren't altogether necessary and would have been extraneous, and for the sake of pacing you cut them out. But you can bring them back later, and people who enjoy your game can keep playing it, have a little bit more, spend a little bit more money, and you get your team working on sustainment funds. You can keep them together and keep people employed longer.
Which makes perfect sense from a business point of view. It really does. Okay.
Yeah, my opinions on DLC is they're nice extra content to have, but they're not, they may or may not be necessary to enjoy the core game. I honestly feel like they could they could replace expansion packs in terms of churning out content in manageable sizes instead of having to get like a full-fledged game just to get a continuation of the story. Kind of like kind of like how Dragon Age Awakening handles that in a DLC game.
I was going to say, for me, I view DLC as more of it's, Greg, like you said, it keeps people focused on that task, but it's at a more manageable level. You don't need, the whole team on it. You can have that, dedicated group to, go work on, an older game with DLC, or if they so need to. And it does make sense from a business point of view, because at the end of the day, gaming, the gaming industry is a business. They are looking to make money. And I have no problem with that, personally. So DLC to me is, and should be, what expansion packs to us older gamers used to be. That $20, $30 add-on over the course of a game, the expanded life of a game. Greg, DLC is kind of a new thing for, console gaming. Not so much for PC gamers through Steam and various other, mods and whatnot, but for those that really aren't familiar with what DLC is, why don't you explain it?
All right, if you don't know what DLC is, congratulations, this is the internet. DLC, it's downloadable content. It's, I hate to use the term expansion pack, because it's not exactly that, but it's additional content for a game that you own, which you pay for via some sort of microtransaction, or could be free, which you'll download to your hard drive of your PC, PS3, or console of choice, and it adds additional gameplay to your game.
Okay, what's your take on the original intent of DLC?
I would say the original intent of DLC was probably to try to make more money off of the game that you had. It's the same as the original intent of the expansion pack. If you have a dedicated fan base who wants more via DLC, you can give them some more earlier than actually recreating all of your assets and starting over with a brand new game. So you'll get more money for a relatively low investment of time and assets.
And Laura, as a game developer, would that ring fairly true?
It kind of depends on how you look at it, because a lot of publishers, a lot of their concern is money. I mean, developers really, a lot of games have such a loyal fan base, and anytime that any developer can give their fans something else, it's great. But I won't deny that there's a little bit of money in there. But know that most developers don't see it as just a big money thing.
Okay, why don't you take the fan perspective then on the original attempt?
I mean, as a fan, usually when I get a game, I always want more of it.
Yeah. So
if they come up with the DLC and it's a little bit of money, that's fine by me, as long as it's not ridiculous amounts for a ridiculously tiny amount of content.
I was going to say the one game that comes to mind that did something similar like that would probably have been Ashura's Wrath. As far as little content, but why am I going to spend $7 for an ending?
Yeah.
For what that, basing the price of the game over the gameplay of said game. Lunatic, what's your take on the original intent of DLC?
Basically, the original intent of DLC is, it's basically side content that you're willing to pay extra for, like, oh, hey, you want to get an extra chapter for Mass Effect 1, for example, with Bring Down the Sky and Pinnacle Station, and what you get out of it is, oh, hey, you might get a new item, or you might explore new areas. What I have right in front of me as my September 2006 issue of EGM, saying something like, hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, so basically stuff like, okay, you want to explore this new corner of the galaxy, download this DLC, that sort of thing. And, you know, from Mass Effect's point of view, for example, it was going to be something like bridging DLC, like, okay, this DLC might allude to something in Mass Effect 2. You know, that's the original intent. And it depends on the games in question, so...
Now, as a general question to the three of you, what do players want from their DLC?
Yeah, probably extra hours in case, you know, if you've played the core game like dozens of times without having to start a new game, or you just want extra story content that's nice to have. And whether it's crucial or not is subjective to the game in question. So.
Greg?
I would say when I go for DLC, I tend to do it with the mindset of, I had a lot of fun doing this, I enjoyed this game, I don't want it to end right now, I want to stay in this world a little bit longer and have some more fun with it. And DLC gives me some brand new content with which to do it. So when I buy DLC, I just want some new content to play with.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that one. I know I definitely... If there's any game that I've seen the most play out of from me, it has probably been any game that has the modding tools, which is, you know, the community version of DLC, more or less. And it's because of I get to play in the world still. And that's, you know, for me, that's the biggest thing I love. Regardless of whether or not I have to pay for it or not. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. Is if the game's good enough, I'll support the game.
Yeah.
Laura, as a player, you know, what do you want, you know, from your DLC that you might potentially get?
Well, like the two before me have said, that more hours in the game, being able to further explore the universe. I'm going to say my favorite DLC of all time is probably Skyrim Hearthfire, just because it was something else that you got to do.
I was going to say, for my favorite paid DLC was probably Dawnguard, actually, at least for me. But I completely get why, you know, Hearthfire would definitely be interesting with the player agency that they kind of gave to you in that regard for what it was.
Yeah, it's a lot of content. It was pretty cheap, actually, so one of my favorites ever.
And speaking of which, Greg, what would be some of your, you know, favorite DLCs that you...
Oh, some of my favorite DLCs. That's a good question. I liked Lair of the Shadow Broker. Not to always swing back to Mass Effect, but I did like Lair of the Shadow Broker. And
in fairness, it was good DLC.
It was a lot of fun, and it was really long for how much money it cost. I was quite shocked. Yeah. I really liked in the Force Unleashed games, mm-hmm. where they always had sort of the non-canon alternate endings, where if you got the non-canon ending, you could explore some alternate futures.
Yep.
With DLC, I had a lot of fun on those missions. So I'd say those have to rank about my favorites.
Nice. Now, Lunatic?
Barring Lair of the Shadow Broker, I genuinely enjoyed the Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC for Arkham City and the Saints Row DLC. So those are pretty much my favorite ones off of the top of my head at this moment.
I was going to say, for me, Dawnguard and probably pretty much any of the expansion packs, I don't know, sorry, I equate them to the same. Any of the DLC from Fallout 3, New Vegas, or Skyrim have pretty much been my favorites, personally.
Oh, Matt, I need my nickel back. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Undead Nightmare. If we don't mention that in the podcast about what's the best or favorite DLC, then we're doing something wrong.
Well, I mean, hey, you know, I play Mass Effect wrong according to our normal host, so, you know. Now, Laura, this will be an interesting question as a developer. Is DLC killing the single-player story-based games?
Well, I don't think... let me figure out what I'm going to say. Okay, it really depends on how the DLC is done. So if a company is taking, like, vital parts of their story out and throwing it in as DLC, that's killing the game. But if you're saying, oh, we didn't have time to do this, let's add this in at DLC, that's making the game better, in my opinion. So it really depends how the company does it and kind of what the content is, too.
Does that entail things such as, I hate going to the topic, but Day 1 DLC?
Day 1 DLC, it really depends on what it is. Like, if it's something completely different that shouldn't have been, isn't a vital part of the game, yeah, I'm okay with Day 1 DLC. If they just cut something out of the game, or like, oh, we could sell it as Day 1 DLC, make 10 extra bucks, then I'm not really okay with it.
I was going to say, for me, the best example of Day 1 DLC being used was probably the original Dragon Age. Shale, Stone Prisoner.
Yeah. I mean, that one, I didn't really play too much Dragon Age, but I played enough to know who Shale is. That one, she wasn't really that vital to the story, so I would be okay with that one.
Well, that's the thing. To me, they, you know, not to swing it back to BioWare, but to me, that was probably the one thing that I've seen Day 1 DLC done right. It was a gift to those that pre-ordered the game, because the customers had pre-ordered the original Dragon Age, and they said, hey, here's your, you know, Stone Prisoner DLC code, but I've played the game with and without that particular DLC. It adds a lot of insight into the Dwarven stuff, but it's not enough to completely take away, say, like something like the Thessia missions in Mass Effect 3, if you don't have Javik.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, it's a big, you know, different way of doing things, and I think I would be alright with things like Day 1 DLC if it was done more in the Dragon Age Origins mind frame. I don't know how the rest of you feel about it, but that's my take.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's got to be done right for it to be good.
Right. I find nothing offensive about Day 1 DLC because, you know, these guys need to have something to work on after the game goes gold, and if they can get something done by Day 1, which is probably on the schedule for, okay, we go gold, we work on this, it's done by Day 1, we can offer something as a pre-order bonus, or we could offer something, you know, on Day 1, because that's when we have the most interest in the game. But it's when it feels like something was denied to you because they wanted to make the money is when it feels offensive. And, you know, and that can also be the case for Dislocked, not to jump the gun on this, but when it's dislocked and it's Day 1 DLC and you say, well, you got it done on time for gold, but you're not going to give it to me because you figure I'll pay $15 for it, I find that a bit offensive. But, you know, I'm citing other examples, is there was a lot of Day 1 DLC and a lot of it becomes retailer exclusives. And some of it just feels like you don't need it at all and it's okay, and then some of it feels like it's a little bit more necessary. Like L.A. Noire was a good example of some people ordered from some stores and got brand new missions, and that was awesome. And some people ordered from other stores and got a new suit, and that was kind of lame. And so it really just depends on your point of view and how well it's done and how necessary it was. And sometimes that's just perception, but when you're the customer, as we are, perception becomes reality.
Exactly. Music.
Yeah, Greg pretty much said everything I needed to say on this. Yeah, regarding the disc lock content, it was like Capcom has been in a lot of fire regarding their fighting games, like, you know, paying money for disc lock content like extra fighters and whatnot. And from what I've been hearing from a YouTube user called DSP Gaming, is like a lot of the fighting game communities hold Capcom in a low regard because of that particular business practice. And those are the times when the DLC is inappropriate with the disc lock content. Retail exclusive DLCs, so like how Deus Ex and LA Noire did it, I really feel like this has set a bad precedent, because looking at Assassin's Creed 3 now, it was like there's already 2 or 3 retail exclusive missions. You know, it becomes ridiculous. What if for some reason Ubisoft doesn't decide to make all of those retail exclusive missions available on Xbox Live or PSN Network later down the line for whatever reason? You know, that's the one major concern I have regarding, you know, DLC.
I was going to say, for me, you know, on-disc DLC, I'll just get the on-disc DLC stuff out of the way. Capcom, you're doing it wrong.
Thank you, dude. You said it better than I did.
However, Capcom is not the only one doing it wrong. Now, Greg, this one might hit a little close to home. 38 Studios also did on disc.
Oh, you watch it now, mister.
Okay, sorry, the publisher that pressed the disc also did on-disc DLC for Kingdoms of Amalur.
Wow.
Amalur.
Sorry, whatever. Excuse my enunciation. But it's not just Capcom that's doing it, other companies are doing it. As far as exclusive content, such as Assassin's Creed or the way Deus Ex, Human Revolution, and various other ones have done it. If it's made available at some point, I tend not to have an issue with it. However, if they are, say, vital to the story or the core product, then I take issue with it. For me, if you're taking out, you know, like core characters, or you're telling the the major backstory that leads into why a character is, you know, how they are, then you're taking an important part of the game out of the game so that you can charge more for it. And for me, that's just crappy business practice.
Yeah.
But as far as if it's killing the single-player games, it depends where they're taking, what they're leaving out and what they're putting in. Like Laura said, it really does depend what's going on as DLC. Because to me, single-player DLC should enhance the core product. It shouldn't take away from the product. And unfortunately, some of the DLC, you know, like the on-disc DLC and various other ones, have been taking away from the product more than they've been adding to it. But that's my take on it.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
And the biggest offense that I found, though, is probably the Asura's Wrath one. That one still rubs me the wrong way.
I really wanted to buy that game, and I didn't, just because of the whole, if you want the real ending, you got to buy our DLC. Like, that's not enhancing the story. It's called the ending DLC. Like,
yeah.
You know, and for me, you know how I wanted to buy it. I really did. I wanted to buy that game because it's different enough. I can enjoy a game just based on its story, and that looks like one of those games. Until I found out I had to spend another $7 to actually get the real ending.
Yeah.
Let me think. Oh, hey, YouTube, I'll go watch the 6 hours of gameplay instead.
Yeah.
And that's crappy, but on the same note, I'm being pragmatic about it because the business practice of it is not, it's not enhancing your product. You're taking a rather important part of the game out. But so moving on to the next one. Is DLC the new version of episodic content craze that we saw back a few years ago?
I feel it depends on the publisher. Some people are certainly using it that way, and some people just use it as a chance to expand their universe a little bit. Yeah. Like you'll see some companies and they use it to release a completely different side story, which would have been a little clunky and a little clumsy to put in the full game. Would have really wrecked the pacing. But as a DLC, it works. And then some companies, they like, hey, you buy this, and then we can release this piece now, and we can work on the next one. And I think Telltale Games is making a pretty good living on that.
Yes, they are. And if anyone says licensed properties don't do good, as far as like pre-established properties, I look at Telltale Games and say, yeah, they're doing it right, though.
Yeah.
Not all movie-based games suck. And they're doing it on an episodic content, which is great. But, Laura, what's your take on it?
Well, I never really... Episodic content... Can't let me figure out what I'm going to say so I don't sound like an idiot. Cool, again, it really matters how it's done. If you're doing episodic content, if you do like 5 minutes of gameplay for $10, then you're obviously doing it wrong. But if you get hours and hours of gameplay for $10, then I'm okay with it. It really just depends on how it's being done and what kind of content it is, and if there's a demand for it.
Is there any type of DLC/episodic content that you say has done it right, other than Telltale, which has already been mentioned?
I honestly can't think of any off the top of my head right now.
Well, we can't say Half-Life the episodes because it stopped after 2. So.
See, Half-Life is the example of doing it wrong.
Yeah,
you kind of have to release the next episode for it to be episodic.
Yeah, but it's Valve time.
Just a little tip.
But everything's done on Valve time.
Yeah, it'll be ready when it's ready, supposedly.
6 years later?
Yeah. Time is not friendly to the development process, because the longer you wait, the more things change and the more dated your game's going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can ask 3D Realms about how that worked out for them.
You probably want to ask Gearbox.
Yeah. Or Gearbox, yeah. Of course, Gearbox, they didn't have to do much. I understand they probably just had to give a quick investment and then toss a couple of devs on it to finish the job and then release it and say, well, now we have the rights.
Yeah. But the episodic content's always been interesting in theory because it's taking like the TV series mentality to video games. But like Laura said, you kind of have to release them on a regular basis in order for them to actually work.
Yeah, a couple-year gap doesn't help.
No, it really doesn't. That's why, to me, and a lot of other, I like Jake said, I know, Telltale is about the only one that seems to have actually figured it out. And I can't think of anybody else that does like what episodic content or DLC for it would be.
Yeah.
Because it gives you that smaller development, that smaller development time frame and window and team, but they can kind of chop it up as they go and as they need to. But expansion packs versus DLC. Which one, Greg, do you prefer, to be honest, now?
To be honest now, and this may sound like not the right answer for somebody of my age who's been through both eras, I prefer the DLC, honestly. Because with DLC, and I'm going to completely take away the whole expansion packs used to be disc-based, so there was a lot of extra costs and time. Let's just eliminate that and look at the content. Sometimes expansion packs could be not good, and now you've paid $30 for another 5 to 10 hours of gameplay, which is sometimes not good and sometimes takes you too far out of the world in order to be truly the expansion pack. It's been my experience. I haven't enjoyed very many expansion packs that I've played, but I tend to enjoy a lot of the DLCs I play. So I'm going to go with I prefer DLC. I think it's easier to make when it's smaller and it's more bite-sized. You get a little bit more latitude as far as where you can go with it, and I think it leads to a better product.
Lunatic?
Yeah, it depends on the game in question. Like, I don't know which one to prefer, but honestly, I feel like DLC is more manageable in a financial sense because, like Greg said earlier, it's like the expansion packs could be a potential flop. I mean, for example, Medal of Honor Allied Assault, a game made in 2001, had 2 expansion packs, and it was like the first one was good, but the second one was crap, from what I've been hearing, or average at best. So, I'd rather spend 800 Microsoft points on a Saints Row DLC than spending $30 on an expansion pack that might suck. That's just my take on this.
So basically, what you're saying is that because of the lower barrier to, and the lower cost of entry it doesn't seem like such a gamble.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That's a very fair assessment. Laura?
So, I prefer DLC mainly because it's usually shorter than a expansion pack. Because most expansion packs were released quite a while after the game, and after I've been done with that game for so long, I just can't go back and sit through 6 more hours. I mean, if it's just a couple hours, I'm fine with it, but I can't sit there and play 6-7 hours of a game that I've already done.
Fair enough. I know where you're coming from on that. For me, it depends on the game. It really does. For me, I think if they had done more DLC, like for Dragon Age, I don't think Awakening was really needed. I mean, I like the 20 hours of gameplay it gave me, but I don't really think what they offered was really needed as an expansion pack. Whereas if they probably could have done more with DLC.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stand up on this one and say that I hated Awakening, and I felt it was completely unnecessary and wished I hadn't bought it. All right, go ahead, flame me. I don't care. I said it.
No,
I couldn't even finish Awakening. It was just so long
and tedious.
Yeah.
I know. I had the way I played it is I got the big edition with all the DLC. So I finished the main story. I'm like, okay, let's go play Awakening. And halfway through, I'm like, I've already played this.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like the fifth wheel. I did not download all of the Dragon Age DLC at all, just because it was just way too expensive for me. And yeah, I did not even download Awakening at all. So yeah,
there's no reason to, honestly. Like I know what they were trying to do, and I appreciate it, but Awakening felt like work. It really did.
Yeah.
And when I'm playing a game, I don't want it to feel like work.
Very true.
I love the idea, just wasn't the best execution.
No,
exactly.
It really wasn't. The execution was not. If you were looking for another continuation of the Warden's story, you're sadly disappointed by the overall story for an expansion pack.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, but it's been like 5 years, so I'm going to be okay with it. If your warden dies at the end and then you start up Awakening and he's right there again, really takes you out of the story.
Yeah, that one confused me because it's like, why? Huh? He's dead.
They had some more Legion guy come in if you died, didn't they?
Well, if you just started it fresh. If you continued your story with your decisions, then he didn't die. He was brand new. Like you didn't have to import your Dragon Age Origins game. If you started just with a fresh Awakenings game, you were from more late. But if you tried to import from your Dragon Age Origins, even if your warden dies at the end, he just comes strolling on up. Like, I got better.
Yeah. It does. It takes you out of the element there.
Made the ultimate sacrifice, but doesn't matter.
It's not so ultimate when you get to walk away.
Yeah.
just got a couple band-aids.
It was the ultimate inconvenience.
The ultimate inconvenience. Oh, that's terrible. What the hell are they talking about in chat? Oh my God, I gotta stop paying attention to that.
Hold on a sec. Expansion pack versus DLC. That's what we were covering.
The reviewers. Do reviewers and reviews have a responsibility to mention critical DLC, important day one DLC, dislog DLC, take your pick for whatever version of DLC you want to make it. Should it be part of a reviewer's job to mention it?
The answer is yes, it should be part of the reviewer's job. They're there as sort of my proxy. I don't get to play all the games, so I need somebody to go out there and figure out what's going on for me, and that's where the reviewer steps in. Now, if the reviewer neglects things that affect me as the consumer, for whatever reason, and you can come up with any conspiracy theory you want, when that is neglected, then the reviewer is not doing his job correctly for me. So if there's dislocked DLC, or if day one DLC should have been included but wasn't, and his perception of that's an important part of the process of reviewing. And when he neglects it, then he does a disservice to me, the consumer, allegedly the customer of his product.
Laura?
I kind of have the same idea. It's his job to sell the product, and if I get the product and I see dislocked DLC on it, I'm not going to be happy, and I'm not going to be happy with him doing his job. And next time that I see him reviewing something, might not take his word for it.
Yeah.
Moriarty. Excuse me.
Oh, right.
I had a cough.
I already did something in relation to Moriarty, so...
Who mentioned Moriarty?
Sorry.
I had a cough.
I just heard somebody mention an ass. That's all I heard.
I don't know. I wasn't
another donkey podcast?
Donkey? What?
Not
Can someone talk about DLC?
Yeah, well... that's how we all view DLC. It's all donkeys.
Downloadable content.
And just so you know, none of this is going to be cut out.
Oh, that's super.
It's kind of sad that both the podcasts I've been on have, donkey content in it.
That is sad.
Actually, and you were the one that mentioned the donkeys this time.
No, someone said, I heard someone say ass, and I'm sorry. Just talk about DLC.
Okay, we're trying to get your take on reviewers and the responsibility for critical DLC.
I thought I just said that.
No, I meant lunatic. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they definitely have an obligation to the consumer, saying, that okay, if there's dislike content or there's critical day one DLC, it should be stated right off the bat. Yeah, let's just say Greg said his issue a lot better than I did.
I most definitely agree that reviewers should be mentioning Day one DLC, regardless of its content. It's some people will buy it, some people won't, some people will want it, some people won't. It's their job to inform people. It's not their job to determine just the experience that they seem to think that that's all they have to review. They're there to inform the consumer.
Yeah.
So hey, be like a movie critic, be like a music critic. Tell me if I should buy it. But
yeah, I agree. That's when they neglect that sort of thing, they're neglecting their job.
And unfortunately, a lot of them do that. A lot of them don't do that. I mean, and that is one of the things HTL is looking to fix by providing our own content and providing that particular information. So, what developers and publishers are doing DLC right, according to you guys?
Well, Rockstar has to get mentioned in there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Rockstar almost does expansion packs just on console.
Yeah.
But they do story-focused DLC, which I like.
They do,
Yeah.
and sometimes I hate to go back to my old statement, but Undead Nightmare I think worked because this was something that was completely off the rails and like, hey, check this out. We put a lot of work into it. Has nothing to do with the story, and if you don't play it, you won't even notice.
Very true. CD Projekt Red is another one I know that you mention a lot, but for the enhanced editions of the Witcher stuff that they've done, it's been free to people who have already purchased it. Now, publishers, that one's a little more tricky.
Yeah.
Well, the tricky thing about publishers is that a lot of them, and correct me if I start going off the rails here, a lot of them are publicly traded companies, and when you start becoming a publicly traded company, like your loyalty shifts from the customer to the shareholders, so you don't get a chance to do a lot of stuff like they won't come out and say it, but I'm sure in the back of their head the thought is, we want the DLC to feel like it's mandatory so that people will buy it.
I would say that's probably fairly accurate. The only publishers that have really done it right, THQ's been pretty good with most of their DLC stuff.
Ooh, really? Just out of curiosity, can you name any titles? I mean, my only exposure with THQ is the Saints Row franchise.
Saints Row being one of them. Didn't the original Darksiders have some DLC, Greg?
Oh, I think it. I never got it, but I think it did.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I know I'm like 90% sure the original Darksiders had DLC, but it wasn't like game critical.
Yeah, I think I saw something about that somewhere.
So THQ's done it right. Some of the Sony like the Sony first party games, I want to say Uncharted 2 probably did the best out of the first party stuff from Sony, but that's about it. Really.
Infamous 2 had that vampire one that wasn't horrible. I actually kind of liked it.
Was it Blood of Trials or Trials of Blood or something?
Don't even ask me. I don't remember the names of all of them, but I liked it.
I was going to say, thank you for reminding me of that, because that was actually fairly good. I haven't played Infamous 2 forever. But it wasn't story critical. It was just an add-on to the game.
Yeah, it was something very tangentially related to it, but you got to be Cole for a little bit longer and do some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking. It's festival. For clarification, the DLC in question is Festival of Blood.
That's right.
I was gonna say it was something along those lines. Well, you have any devs or pubs that you feel are doing DLC right by the customer or the consumer?
I really kind of want to say Bethesda, but with Skyrim, they've had some really bad stuff with being Xbox exclusive, and
Oh yeah.
so I guess to an extent they're doing it right, because I don't think I've ever not had fun with a Bethesda expansion pack or DLC.
See,
But
I'm
in
the
this
only
game,
one that
I'm doing
doesn't.
the same thing as you are. But, you gotta make it available for everyone. If only people who play on one console can have it, then it's not as good.
Which I believe is the current issue with Dawn Guard on the PS3.
Yeah, that's a nice legal battle.
Yeah.
Right, and it's understandable. Like I don't want to be an apologist, but I do understand that. Hey, if we release it on this a few months before this, we get a very nice chunk of money, and we enjoy money because it buys food, so we don't die. I can understand where the developer's coming from. I do, however, think that Bethesda has been a little extreme in that. As I'm gonna cite Fallout 3, and I was a PS3 Fallout 3 player, and all my friends were 360 Fallout 3 players, and I got to hear about all the extra stuff they got to do, and I did not. And then by the time it actually did come out, I was so off Fallout 3, I didn't want to go back and play any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bethesda's almost got it. They're so close.
Yeah, they really are. For me, I do like the fact that they do the Game of the Year editions with all the DLC. Now, whether or not for those that haven't purchased the DLC or any of it, for those that have, they become a little, what's the point in buying it again? But Bethesda's, they're so close.
So close. They almost touching the finish line.
Yeah, I don't know of any other developers that or publishers that are really close to getting it right, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. To go back to Bethesda, I mean, I'd be more okay with it. It was like, okay, this one's going to be Xbox first, and then PS3 will get a little later. And then the next DLC go, oh, PS3 players get it first, then Xbox players get it a little later. But of course, you're in a whole Sony-Microsoft battle, and those aren't fun.
Yeah, but they're a slave to who writes the check. If Microsoft wants to write the check, it's free money to them. They're going to develop it either way.
I was going to say, they don't care where the money comes from as long as the money goes to them.
Right. I try to be understanding of being a game developer. While you get to express yourself artistically, it's not a 100% altruistic career. You do expect to get a paycheck and buy food while doing it, and sometimes that means making a decision which is best for the food buying aspect of it and not so much for the fan service aspect of it.
Which is very true. And I believe that was a certain point somebody tried to make in a video they did, but they came across as a jackass.
Somebody did. I remember that. There's definitely
just throwing that out there.
Some skinny hipster-looking guy with fake glasses.
Yeah, and I think he went to UNE and he played hockey and he got hit with a hockey puck too many times.
Wow.
Yeah, somebody along those lines.
Not specifying who, but just
could be anybody.
Could be anybody.
Anyone in the whole entire world.
Anybody with a history degree.
and they tried picking on Eric Kane, and they got lambasted for it, and they had to make their Twitter account private for a few days.
I'm actually starting to get a bit upset that we know so much about him.
Multiple people.
Yeah. But, so... We have... So, it seems that in the gaming industry that a lot of the devs and pubs are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Well, DLC is relatively new. I'm not sure anyone really knows how to do it yet. And they're just not guessing right.
I mean, it's only been, what, 6 years since this whole concept started? If anyone can remember something that predates 2007, let me know. But they're still feeling it out, and it's very obvious that they're still feeling it out.
Yeah, I mean, back in 2006, the best extent, or earlier than that, actually, is like the best extent we got for DLC was, like, for example, Knights of the Old Republic with Yavin Station. You could download that for free, and that was pretty much the only DLC you got out of that game. I mean, that's how it was back in the day. It was just an over-glorified map pack, so... Yeah, like Greg mentioned, it's just the whole matter of feeling it out and seeing where to go. One thing I neglected to mention, like, a lot earlier in the podcast is that I never had a chance to bring up was that DLC is not always stable, which I should have brought up. Like, for example, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, published by Activision, they only had DLC for the span of either 2 weeks or 2 months, and Activision shut down those services because no one bought the game. So there is an inherent risk to the DLC in terms of you have an artificial time limit involved with that, depending on the game in question, just because of whether or not the game sells. So I really wish I brought this up a whole lot earlier.
I agree, and there was a point that was made about, you know, the potential of, when we were talking about expansion packs versus DLC,
Yeah.
that expansion packs have the potential to suck, quite frankly.
Yeah.
There's a game series called Spellforce for PC. There was a 6-year gap between one expansion to the next. I bought the last expansion. Quite frankly, it sucks.
Yeah.
And it was a $30 investment. So it's like, well, my investment was not worth the time I put into that. So there really is a fine line that they're trying to walk. And I do understand where they're coming from and trying to walk it. But on the same note, they also have to understand that if you're focusing on a single-player game... don't rip out story elements. Don't rip out stuff from the core game. We don't want to nickel and dime. We get nickel and dime enough.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't actually literally do that, you need to fight that perception.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big problem within the industry right now, is that the perception is you guys want to nickel and dime us.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of people are feeling that DLC is now.
Yeah.
And
So I think just a couple people need to be doing it right. Everyone needs to go, oh, they're doing it right, let's do that. And everything will be all good.
yeah, it's just finding those people that are doing it right.
And
So,
even the people doing it wrong, they don't do it wrong all the time. I don't want to turn it into a publisher bashing. EA, for as much flack as they get, do on occasion do the right thing by DLC.
I will give EA all the credit in the world for how they published the original Dragon Age. I will give them all the credit in the world how they published the original Mass Effect 2 when it came to DLC.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of the serverless network. I liked when they implemented BSN and all that other stuff. Now, granted, most of that was probably in plans before they bought BioWare, but the fact of the matter is it was done while under still EA management.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll give them credit where it is due, and there it is due. Some of the Battlefield 2 is another example.
Which one? there's like two versions of it. I'm just asking out of curiosity.
Just in general, as a franchise, that it is.
Oh, okay.
That's another one that they've actually done fairly well with the community. One they haven't done so well with was Battlefield 2142. They did really badly with that one.
Yeah.
So it all depends. And I hope they find it soon, because the gamers will get pissed at some point, and it's not going to be a pretty sight when they finally do.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that gamer feedback, gamer advocacy is really starting right now, so hopefully stuff changes.
Yeah, because really we're kind of at the forefront of what people, we're the ones being active, shall we say, and as opposed to just sitting back and talking about it, we're the ones actually discussing it, and hey, these are issues that we actually care about, believe it or not. Because
yeah, Mass Effect 3 and the outcry over that really got everything kind of started, and I hope that other developers are looking, let's not have a Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
And, for me, Greg, with the side project we're working on, off HTL, it's a bigger laundry list than ME3 was just kind of the boiling point where gamers got pissed off enough and broke their controllers. Really is what it was. I mean, there's a longer laundry list than just that particular issue. That was the breaking point, I think, though, and that's where if you look at the demographic for gamers in the U.S. anyway, they're in their late 20s to early 30s now. That's their core gamer demographic.
Yeah, and people in our demographic here, Matt, I know you and I are in it, and I won't start guessing ages for the other two members here, but we've been doing this for a while, and a lot of this has sort of been boiling up for a while, to the point where we finally, and I think Mass Effect 3 was such an egregious example of sort of, I'm not going to say phoning it in, because I wasn't behind the closed doors. I have my theories on what happened, but the ending disappointed to such a scale that it just finally made us stop and be like, you know what? This has been a long time coming, and this right here was bad enough that we have to speak up now.
Yeah.
And so when we take on issues like DLC, that is what we're doing. So, and that's what HTL is here to do. We're here to try to show content, show people that gamers are actually should be treated like customers. You want repeat business, and don't treat us like idiots, because we're the ones that are paying for you to do your artistic vision. And I hate to sound crass about that, as to the developer in the panel right now, but
I totally understand.
But you understand what I mean when I say that.
I'm sorry, the scraping kind of overshadowed what you were trying to say. Say again.
I was just saying that I apologize to the current, the developer that is in the panel right now for the crassness, but she knows what I mean when I say that.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely understand it, and I agree with most of it.
I mean, there are aspects of it, obviously, there are bigger business aspects to it, obviously, but that is a whole other topic in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right.
So, any games you guys are looking forward to in the next 6 months to a year?
Who wants to go first?
Whoever.
Halo 4.
Okay, for 2012, it's XCOM Enemy Unknown. This will be my first official exposure to the franchise. For 2013, it's definitely BioShock Infinite, Rainbow Six, Patriots, because of what's going on today, and Aliens Colonial Marines. I've been following it for at least a decade.
Greg, are you going to add your stack of shame in the next 6 months?
Yeah, if I do get around to adding to my stack of shame in the next 6 months, see, this feels like such a weird thing to answer because my answer is going to be 2 games that have already come out, but I did not purchase because I don't want to spend $60 to add them to my stack of shame. But I'm going to say Sleeping Dogs and Transformers: Fall of Cybertron. So yes, I'm looking forward to games that are currently out in the next year. Yes.
Note to the community. This is what it is to be a pragmatic gamer.
Yeah. So, in the next year or so, when I get to playing those 2 games that are currently out and have been out for a while, I expect to enjoy them.
Yes. I can vouch for Sleeping Dogs.
I was going to say, for myself, right now, being a beta tester for certain games, I'm actually looking forward to the games that I'm beta testing. Right now, I'm beta testing for Dust 514 and for PlanetSide 2. And those are probably the 2 biggest games that I'm actually looking forward to as far as the MMO mentality.
Oh, I thought of a game coming out in the future that I can mention. Is no, I'm going to forget the name. The new Metal Gear Solid game.
No,
Somebody help me out. Someone in here knows it.
I can look it up. It's not Revengeance, right? It's the one with
No,
Big
not
Boss.
Revengeance. The one with Big Boss. Zero something.
Heard it before.
Ground Zeroes. Metal Gear Solid
I'm
Ground
looking at
Zeroes.
for you guys. Hang tight.
Yeah, I think it's Ground Zero.
It is Ground Zeroes.
Right. I am looking forward to purchasing that game 6 months to a year after its release date.
Okay. Fair enough.
And in all honesty, I will probably buy that as soon as it comes out.
Yeah. I don't blame you, but I just can't justify that.
Stack
Not
of shame. I know.
Stack of shame, man. Stack of shame.
If you saw my Steam pile of games, you would say a stack of shame too. So I can't say anything. So, Laura, is Halo 4 the only one you're actually looking forward to?
Probably. 'Cause I did a little bit of commercial work on Halo 4, so I got to see it.
Yeah.
And it's when you get to see just that tiny little bit of it, it was so hard not to just steal a copy of it when I was there. So hard. So hard.
No. You wouldn't steal, you'd borrow. Just with no intention for bringing it back anytime soon.
It's true. You accidentally leave it in my Xbox. Because it'd be an accident.
And on that note, we are not condoning.
Do not steal games.
No.
From developers, because that is mean.
Right. Stealing is wrong.
And illegal.
I just feel we should probably just state that outright, just in case. Stealing is wrong, everybody.
We are not responsible for your stupid actions.
Yes, good disclaimer right there.
Other than that, so that is the wrap up. That is our discussion on DLC. I want to thank all our panelists for joining us, Greg, Lunatic, and Laura. Much appreciated. And that is it, HTL community. So this is episode 8. And we're out.